Welcome back to another edition of the Night Report podcast. I'm your co-host, Mike Broadbent. Joining me today is Chris Nalwasky and Craig Epstein. Guys, program-defining win last night. Rutgers went into Mackey Arena, arguably the hardest place in college basketball to play a game as an opponent, and they beat the number one ranked Purdue Boilermakers 65-64. I was on the edge of my seat all last night. I was, just sweating every single possession. Rutgers had a big lead at one point, and then had to fight back a ferocious comeback from Purdue to hold on to the 1-point win. Guys, first off, were you guys watching the whole game last night? What was your experience like?
Yeah, so I was actually, Craig and I had other obligations at the same time last night, but I did watch the whole game. It was absolutely insane. Going into the game, I didn't really feel good, for Rutgers' chances. Purdue, I know Purdue in the last couple of weeks, they had close games. They had, Nebraska, I think, went to overtime and they played a couple cupcakes, but then they beat in November like Duke and Gonzaga by like 20 points. So I was like, man, this Purdue team's good. Obviously, they're ranked number one. But I wrote a preview on Monday or Sunday, and I was like, I saw a crazy stat how they said, obviously everyone knows Mackey Arena is like insane and one of the, toughest, atmospheres, arenas to get a win in. But I read something crazy how they lost the first game of the new year at Mackey Arena in like 4 of the last 5 years or 7 years, whatever it was. Really? So I was like, man, I don't know, man. Obviously Rutgers beat them last year, and then they're number one. I read that. I was like, I don't know, man. Maybe Rutgers can pull this off again. And, obviously Rutgers built that big lead in the first half. They really played so much better than Indiana in the first half, offensively, defensively. Rutgers dealing with foul trouble the whole game, and they still managed to win. I know when Purdue was getting that, run in the second half, I was like, well, here, I didn't really get a sense that Rutgers was going to, fold over and, just let Purdue get the win. I really thought they would punch back, and they did. I thought the way they managed the game with the foul trouble and putting guys in the right spots at the right time was phenomenal. Every time they punch back, Ken Spencer, I'm sure we'll talk about it, but Ken Spencer had 4 fouls. He comes in late in the game and makes the 3-pointer. Everybody else was in foul trouble. Paul McKee kind of took the ball and took the reins a little bit, near the end. Purdue is one of the best rebounding, teams in the country in terms of offensive rebounds, and Rutgers was only -3 or so overall in rebounding, -1 in offensive rebounds. They outscored them, second chance points, stuff like that. So Rutgers just played really well. Rutgers is a crazy ref error away from being 3-0 in the Big Ten. Sure. Everyone else, everyone will sign up for that. So
absolutely.
Rutgers,
2-0 on the road too.
1 on the road. That's all you can ask for.
Yeah, just like you said, for me, it was like I thought Rutgers had I thought going into this game Rutgers had a chance, but do you ever really expect a team to go into Mackey Arena and beat a number one ranked Purdue? Like, that's just the kind of something that you don't, I guess, really predict. But going into this game, I did think Rutgers had a chance because, like you said, Purdue had some quality wins, but their non-conference schedule was pretty soft and they kind of struggled here and there. So I was like, okay, Rutgers and Purdue pretty much play a very similar style of basketball, kind of play that, rough and tough, down low style game. Neither team shoots beyond the arc very well. So I was like, okay, if Rutgers can at least keep this thing close, it's like you never know. And to me, yeah, he or she agrees too. But that's all good. But I was just like, yeah, I think Rutgers could keep this game close, and then with like that thing, you never know. Then really after that first half where Rutgers really just kind of dominated the game and went into halftime with a 10-point lead, I was like, man, Rutgers can really lead. Rutgers can win this game. And I figured, even when they went up by 13, you knew Purdue was going to fight back. It's Purdue at Mackey Arena. Like, if you're going to win, you're going to have to earn it. So Purdue fought back, but credit to Rutgers that every time Purdue made a run, whether it was Cam, whether it was Paul, whoever it may be, just Rutgers made big shot after big shot, and they really earned this win. To me, Rutgers was the better team in this game, and I think the biggest compliment that I can give to them was the fact that Painter said after the game, like, everybody knew what Rutgers was going to do in this game, including Purdue, and they just couldn't stop it. They tried they kind of tried to drop low and defend the paint as best they could. And Paul Mulcahy just kind of drove down, and whether he passed it out, shot it, whatever it may be, they just could not stop it. So to me, that's something where, to me, Rutgers could protect this team. To me, when they play like this could be a special team, because the fact that everybody knows what Rutgers' game plan is, and they still can't stop it.
Yeah, I think Rutgers is quickly becoming the least favorite team for everybody to play in the Big Ten, because we just do not stop. We are tenacious on defense. We are a lot better than I think a lot of national people at least give us credit for on offense. Mm-hmm. And the defensive first approach is great, because I know it's corny and cliche, but defense really does travel. If you put in maximum effort and you play great defense, that's going to show up on the road just as much as it does at home. Obviously, it amplifies itself at home versus on the road. But going into this one, I was not in the camp that I thought this would be a huge upset for Rutgers to win. If you looked at the underlying metrics, Rutgers Purdue was ranked number 1 in the nation, obviously in polls, but they were 4th in the net, 6th in KenPom rankings. Rutgers was 20th in the net and 18th in KenPom rankings coming into this. This was a close game. Rutgers, based on the point spread, there were 8.5-point dogs in this game at Mackey, which if you do the translation to a home game, that would have basically been a pick'em for Rutgers at home. So I thought Rutgers had a good chance here. And I thought the main thing was Pike's really good at scheming, especially on defense. And I knew he would have some kind of plan for Zach Edey. And it was clear right away through the first few minutes of the game, the plan for Zach Edey and defending him was just every time he got the ball, sending help. And they did a great job, especially with Cliff, of not picking up early, quick bullshit fouls like they normally call in the Big Ten. It was surprising that as bad as the refs were last night in terms of favoring Purdue, the first foul of the game was against Zach Edey 20 seconds in, which was huge because he ended up picking up another quick second foul about 5 minutes later, and he missed most of the first half. So that's when Rutgers was really able to build up that lead. But I think Rutgers did such a good job defending Zach Edey last night. Zach Edey started to eat in the middle of the second quarter. That guy doesn't look like a real human being, especially when you have a basketball court filled with guys because Purdue's long as hell too. They're one of the tallest teams in the nation. When you have a court filled with guys averaging between 6'6", 6'7", and then you have this giant, this guy who looks like he's like a creative character in 2K, just out there. He's slow and methodical, but he just kind of chucks the ball at the rim, and it's ends up being a soft touch hook shot. It's what is this?
There was one play. I don't know if you noticed where it was I think it was an offensive rebound, and he just Hulk slapped it back out to back to his team, and it was oh my god.
Yeah, in between 3 Rutgers defenders, he just literally just hammer punched the ball past out to the 3-point line. It was very impressive.
Yeah, but it was just the fact that they held him to 1 field goal and 4 points in the first half, unbelievable. Just like you said, credit to Peichel and their game plan.
And one more thing about coming into this game, why I was confident Rutgers played. You guys kind of touched on it, but in the month of December, here were their opponents. They played Minnesota at home, who's the worst team in the Big Ten. They played Hofstra at home. They played at Nebraska, which they only won by 3 points. And Nebraska, they're not terrible, but they're not great. If you look at their KenPom ranking, I think they're not even the top 100. So they're 82nd in KenPom right now. They played Davidson at home, which they only won by 8 points. They played New Orleans, and they played Florida A&M. That was their entire month of December. Mm-hmm. That is not really a schedule you want to be ramping up into the Big Ten schedule. Rutgers played a bit harder of a schedule, but they also had some tougher early games in the Big Ten, which ultimately might benefit them. I know how much we hate that about our schedule. We always kind of get screwed in that sense, but Purdue really wasn't coming into this game battle hardened, in my opinion. They had those early season tournament games, but what your ranking is in the month of November ultimately is not what you are as a team. And I think we've seen Duke's a little overrated coming into the season. Gonzaga's a little overrated coming into the season. So I do think Rutgers was more iron sharpened iron coming into this than Purdue was. Let's talk.
Yeah, I want to add on that real quick. I mean, Rutgers has been through so much already too. I mean, they had the injuries to Paul and Caleb. They got through that, and they were able to weather the storm. Other guys got more minutes, more experience, and they're better, for that as well. They had the Ohio State game that I mentioned earlier. They kind of let the Seton Hall game affect. They kind of let the Seton Hall effect from that. They took that close loss, but then they're able to bounce back and beat a Wake Forest team that beat Duke by a lot of points as well. And then they obviously finished out 2022 with some easy wins against Coppin State and Bucknell, which Rutgers didn't they didn't do that last year against teams like that. So like you said, they played a lot of good teams already, and yeah, I think they are iron sharpened, and now they have a good chance to kind of keep it going. They have Maryland coming up next, and they have Iowa as well. That on this weekend, both are home games. So yeah, I mean they're in a good spot right now, and yeah.
Yeah, and I would just say that even though Purdue might not end up being the number one team when all is said in the nation, when all is said and done, I'm fairly confident that a win at Mackey Arena will look good, no matter when it happened. By the time you get to March, this will be a big win, a statement win that Rutgers can look at on their resume and be like, hey, we did that.
Yeah, yeah. How many other Big Ten teams this year are going to go to Mackey Arena and get a win? So
exactly.
I mean,
this might be the only one.
You don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say that this is by far the most impressive win on anyone's resume in college basketball this year. And I think it might end up being the most impressive one at the end of the season as well. I do want to talk about how this game actually played out, though, because obviously Rutgers played a phenomenal first half, but they were seemingly fighting against a little bit of ticky-tack bullshit fouls from the referees the first half and the second half. The foul disparity was pretty stark, to put it lightly. Rutgers was called for 24 fouls versus Purdue's 11. Purdue got 28 free throws versus Rutgers 11. This is just something that happens in the Big Ten, unfortunately. They're very home biased in terms of the whistle. I wish it wasn't that way, but it goes for us at the rack and against us on the road. I was very impressed, though, that the team kept their composure and didn't get – because we've seen this team fall apart in, when they faced adversity in past seasons. That hasn't happened as much this year. Obviously, you referenced the Iowa State robbery, kind of bleeding into the Seton Hall game. But I was really impressed with just the dealing with adversity that they dealt with, and finding a way to win with things going against them. Because when that lawyer kid hit that three to put them up 2 late in this one, I was just like, oh, here it is. This is how we lose this game. This is, not typical Rutgers, but this sucks. Like, we came so close again. And sure enough, Pike drew up a great play to get Cam Spencer an open look. It sounded like that wasn't exactly how that play was supposed to go. But if you guys probably heard the post-game press conference where Cam didn't say this, but Paul's like, he said he was going to make it. He said, give me the ball. Spencer just like, not heartless, just like stone cold assassin. He's really kind of quieting some of his doubters and I'll put my hand up. I thought he was, I was questioning whether or not he could create a shot for himself, and he was phenomenal tonight. What did you guys think offensively, though, of Rutgers in this one?
Yeah, I thought they played well offensively. This is a team that's not going to knock down, a bunch of threes, but they had 5 or 6 threes, and that's what you need, to win a game in the Big Ten, especially on the road. Cliff was really good early. He had a couple points, couple buckets early. I thought Caleb McConnell hit his mid-range shots. I thought he did well there. Paul McKay took over down the end of the game. He got into the lane. He got his own offensive rebounds and some putbacks. They kind of switched it up. They had a lot of pick and rolls and handoffs with Cliff and Paul, and I thought that really affected Purdue. They did a really good job with that. the ball movement, wasn't 30 assists on 34 buckets or anything like that. But I mean, you can't expect that every night. But they did a really good job, I think. They obviously did just enough to win, and I mean, you can't. I mean, obviously, Peichel said it. You can't defend the foul line. So Rutgers, I mean, they did make 9 of their 11, foul shots, and if they missed 2 more, obviously, they wouldn't have gotten the win. So they kind of, did what they needed to do and was able to pull out the win, on the road here.
Yeah, I mean, to me, offensively, I thought they did fine. I mean, looking at the stats, they were 25-58 from the field, 6 for 14 for 3. I mean, this team, like you said, this team is never going to might never really overwhelm you offensively, but I mean, their defense is just so good that as long as they can just, put together at least like average offense, they should be able to win. And I mean, don't look now, but I mean, I'm kind of looking at some of these scores. I mean, we kind of always go after Rutgers for having like a bad offense, but I mean, looking at all these scores, they average, other than the Seton Hall game. The Seton Hall game is kind of that one clunker that kind of just sits there. But I mean, Rutgers kind of averages, 60, 70, 80 points a game. I'm looking right now. I mean, if you want to take out, I guess you want to take out the cupcake games, you could say Miami, they scored 61, they lost. But I mean, that is what it is. Against Indiana, 63, won that game, obviously. Ohio State, 66. Wake Forest, 81. Bucknell, 85. Coppin State, 90. And then today, 65. So, I mean, Rutgers, like I said, Rutgers' offense is kind of, it might not be overwhelmingly great, but it's been doing its job. It's been pretty good, and they did it again. And to me, like you said, with the fouls, I mean, I think there was a pretty bad foul discrepancy just because, like I said before, I think Rutgers and Purdue play a very similar style of basketball, a very physical, down-low style of basketball. So to say that, Rutgers was, the team to say that Rutgers was fouling that much more than Purdue, it's just hard for me to believe. And somehow, like Zach Edey, like you said, picked up 2 early fouls, and it seemed like I don't even know if he fouled the rest of the way, which to me it's just like I don't understand how that computes, but whatever. But I mean, like you said, Rutgers was able to keep their composure. Oh, you know what? There's 2 right off the top of my head that I can remember pretty bad. It was the Cam Spencer one where he came kind of flying in and he deflected. It looked like he got all ball on Zach Edey.
Yes, yep.
And they called it a foul in his hand. And that one was bad, but I guess it's kind of heat of the moment, so it is what it is. But the one that was probably the worst, I forget who it was, but it was when he stepped on Caleb's shoe, goes down, and it might have shuffled his feet. And somehow Caleb was the one who got called with the foul. That was, to me, that was the worst call of the game.
The worst part about that one, though, is that, the play happens, right? The guy steps on Caleb's, ankle. Caleb falls. The kid falls on top of him. They don't call a travel. They don't call anything. They wait about a second and a half, and they call a foul, and then on Caleb. I thought they were going to call an offensive foul because he pushed off of Caleb to start and then stepped and then tripped over Caleb. Yeah, the refs weren't great. A lot of just very quick whistles, despite not really letting the play out. If that makes it looks like contact, therefore blow the whistle. One thing I keep noticing with this team is there a team that gets more charges called against them than Rutgers. I think we're good for at least 3 to 5 charges called against us a game. And I mean, when you get a reputation for that, it's really tough to overcome. But our guys have to get better about not dropping their shoulders, because as soon as you just drop that shoulder, even if the guy's shuffling his feet, it's going to get called against you. So they got to get better at doing that. But one thing, two things that stuck out for me on offense that really impressed me. I thought Paul and Caleb did a really good job with their old man game, I'll call it. Just backing dudes down, shot fakes, turning it into a turnaround or an easy layup for Paul and Spencer throughout the game. And I thought we've had this kind of discussion about what do we do at the end of the games when we need a bucket? And last night the answer was, and maybe this is the answer going forward, give the ball to Paul, let him, run the high pick and roll, let him back guys down. And if because I don't know if this guy you trust more with the ball in his hands than Paul. If he gets doubled, he'll kick it out to the wide open shooter. If not, he'll find a way to get an open shot, because it's so hard for a guard to defend Paul, because he's got the handle and he's 6'7", and college guards just aren't typically that big. So he's got a lot of physical advantages that it looks like we're going to kind of rely on in late game situations moving forward if this is how they're going to handle it.
Yeah, Paul is so good at kind of like you said, packing guys down and kind of like spinning around and doing whatever and getting the bucket. I mean, last night, I mean, I know someone alluded to earlier that the last play of the game for Rutgers wasn't the exact drawn up play, but I mean, Paul was backing his guy down and kicked the ball out to Cam, and he did a little pump fake and then made the 3-pointer. I mean, that's exactly what what you was talking about. Cam, I met Cam in the summer, obviously when we had the media practice. Everyone talked about his ability to shoot the ball and how competitive he was and how mad he got if he did something wrong or if he missed a shot. I think you're seeing it now. He's so competitive and he wanted the ball. I mean, I know at some early in the season we're talking about without Ron Harper Jr. and Joe Baker, who's going to take the end of game shots, who's going to come up big, and I always thought Cam was going to be that guy, even though he's new to the team. He has that kind of personality and kind of moxie to him, and kind of swagger to him that he could do it, and he did it. Paul said it, Pikel said it as well. He wanted the ball at the end there, and he obviously he delivered like I wrote about in my sidebar at the end of the game. He made the shot. He knew he was going to make the shot, and he did. So, I mean, he's honestly played extremely well this season on both ends of the court. So, I'm very, very impressed with Cam, and obviously, still a ways to go. But Rutgers also has them next year too. So, I'm sure that's exciting for the for the coaches as well.
Yeah, and just talking about Paul, I mean, just watching him last night, his footwork is second to none. You could see, I mean, he did, like you said, the old man style of basketball where, I mean, there was a play where it was towards the end where he just kind of, he did his typical kind of shuffle in the feet or, keeping the pivot foot type of thing. And he deked out the Purdue defender and put it up. It did get, blocked into like the fifth row by Zach Edey, but that's because that's what Zach Edey does. But I mean, just the move by Paul in that one was just unbelievable. And, he just has such unbelievable court vision, like you said, where it's just, he, even though the play might not have been exactly what Steve Pikel drew up, he just knew to get it out to Cam Spencer, hits the three, and that's the game. And it's just like, yeah, he is the guy you probably want the ball in hands down the stretch of games. And if Cam Spencer can be the guy that can hit those shots at the end of games, that's just another boost for Rutgers offense and another, wrinkle in their offense that teams will have to respect towards the end of games. And yeah, it's just that's exciting, just exciting thing for Rutgers. What are you gonna say, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, going back to Paul, I just want to give out his stat line real quick. I mean, he had 16 points. He made 7 of 13 buckets. He made his only 3. He made his only free throw. He had 8 rebounds, 3 offensive rebounds, 4 steals, and obviously no turnovers. I mean, getting that crazy stat line, no turnovers. That's absolutely insane. So I mean, yeah, I mean, Paul's kind of like not talked about a lot. I mean, he kind of just does everything. He's the glue guy, and he just helps out the team in so many ways that maybe don't always show up in the box score. But obviously, last night he was very much so in the box score, and he really kind of willed Rutgers showed the win there at the end of the game. So.
And after the Cam Spencer shot, I don't know if I've ever seen that much emotion out of him. I don't know, Chris. Maybe you saw it during practices and things like that. But I mean, he was like, that was just crazy.
Yeah, he's an assassin. I agree, though. Paul has shown a lot of growth this year in terms of maturity too. Like last year, he had a few games where he let his emotions get the best of him. This game, he was as steady as a leader that you could possibly want for a team. Like that stat line you said, Chris. He led the team in points. He led the team in steals. He led the team in assists. He led the team in rebounds. He led the team in offensive rebounds. The only stat that he didn't lead the team in is blocks because there was only one. He had no turnovers. An incredible game by Paul. I was just blown away by how well he played. I've never been to Mackey, but based on how loud it sounded on TV, that sounded like a snake pit. The reputation it has is right up there with the Rack. Or Jersey Mike's, whatever you want to call it, whatever your corporate affiliation may be. Just blown away by Paul last night. He played a phenomenal game.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, we'll probably talk about this too, but I mean, it didn't end up costing him, but Caleb down this stretch was had a little brain fart here and there between, there was one where it was the shot clock, the shot clock was at 6 seconds, and I don't think he knew. He just kept dribbling and dribbling, and the thing went out, and he was like still dribbling, so that was kind of bad. And then obviously at the end when he was shuffling his feet, I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, he's had against Ohio State, he dropped that wide open pass too, where it was like an easy layup. It was like a drop pass from Spencer, I believe. He had the 24-second violation, or the 30-second, or the shot clock violation, I'm sorry, in this one. And then the last play of the game, or one of the last plays of the game, we were inbounding from the sideline. Obviously, you can move down the baseline on a made basket. You can't do that when it's a ball on the sideline. He just kind of drops back like a quarterback. They call the penalty on him, or they call the not the penalty, it's a turnover, I guess you call it. Yeah, I got football in the brain. It's a turnover, and thankfully Purdue doesn't have some Derek Fisher-like turnaround shot or tip in from Zach Edey. Rutgers really played well, good defense on that final play. But yeah, I mean, Caleb's a great player. He's a clutch player. I think these are just isolated incidents. I'm not going to sit here and say that I think Caleb needs to be more headsy, because I think he's a very high basketball IQ player. It's just unfortunate that he's made a few critical mistakes late in games.
Nah, he'll be fine. I'll chalk it up to just having too much of a good time on New Year's Eve.
Yeah, I guess we can talk about briefly the last play by Purdue. I mean, the first thing they did, after the Caleb turnover there, they passed the ball into Edey, and Rutgers had like 3 guys, surrounding Edey. He made him, he made Edey kick the ball back out, and obviously, Rutgers. I mean, Purdue never got a shot off, and they actually did the same thing on the possession when they missed a 3-pointer after Cam made it. So Edey, they kind of surrounded Edey, and then he kicked the ball out. Purdue had good ball movement there, but the basketball gods kind of gave Rutgers one there. The ball hit the rim a couple times. So
yeah, I think we were owed one based on how the officiating went and how the Ohio State game went. We were owed a good karmic victory there. So couldn't be more happy about this win. Is there anything else you guys wanted to touch on about this game before we sign off today?
Oh, I just remembered when we talked about it before the thing so if you go to Rutgers, I was looking on Rutgers' Instagram, and I forget under which post it was, but it was under one of them where, they put the final score and, put the win and things like that. Underneath, I saw Ace Bailey puts a couple fire emojis, and I'm like, that's interesting.
Yeah, that was on the actual win post, that shows the final score of 65-64. It's Cliff dunking. It's the top comment, at least the most liked comment.
Yeah.
Outside of Ron and Eric Legrand's replies to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
just saw that. I was like, that's interesting. I don't know if you usually see that with kind of recruits going on,
And if we want to get even more conspiracy minded, his if you go to his story, and I'll show it for the camera here. He's who's that? It looks like Dylan Harper. That's Dylan Harper's most recent post. So
interesting.
Very interesting indeed, guys. Very interesting indeed. It's almost like we might be getting a really good class in 24. I don't know. We'll have to stay tuned to that one.
Never know.
I mean, as of right now, Rutgers is number 16 in both KenPom and the net rankings. They've never been that high ever. So, right now they're, I believe they're below Purdue and Ohio State. Obviously, both teams they quote unquote beat. So, Rutgers is in a good spot. They got Maryland coming up on Thursday, I think it is, and they got Iowa on Sunday, both at home. So, they have Northwestern next week. So, these next couple of games are going to be very critical for Rutgers. I know it's the beginning of January, but I think you can kind of put, Rutgers in the middle of the Big Ten title conversation right now. It's obviously early. You don't know what's going to happen, but if Rutgers can beat Indiana, if Rutgers could go to Purdue and get the win, Rutgers could almost really beat a really good Ohio State team. You never know what's going to happen. So.
Let's talk look ahead here. So we have 2 more games in the next, week. We have a game on Thursday night playing at home versus Maryland. On Sunday afternoon, we play Iowa. Then we go at Northwestern. and we get the rematch from earlier this season, playing Ohio State at home. That's our next 4 games. Those are all games we're going to be favored in. Rutgers could very well, by the middle of January, be sitting alone in terms of first place at the Big Ten. I don't think it's out of question at all for Rutgers to really make a push for the Big Ten title this year.
Yeah, I mean,
if they continue playing the defense. I mean, Rutgers is one of the really few teams that plays outstanding defense game in and game out. I mean, they held Purdue to their second lowest total this season, last night, and that was only by 1 point. They always held, leading scorers under their average and teams under their average. Purdue doesn't turn the ball over yet. Purdue turned the ball over last night. Rutgers had 9 steals or something like that. So, if they play outstanding defense, it really fuels their offense. Even if they don't really play great offense, their defense really does well on that side of the court. They have the length. They have everybody that could really do a really good job, on the defense. So, I mean, Rutgers. I mean, I think Mike said it earlier. Nobody wants to play Rutgers. Nobody wants to play, Rutgers and their stout defense, stuff like that. So, if they continue to do that and make shots, I mean, sky's the limit really for this team, for sure.
Yeah, and to me, it's just probably the best thing about the Big Ten is also the worst thing about the Big Ten is that really anybody can beat anybody. Mm-hmm. And if like you said, if Rutgers is probably going to be favored in most of these upcoming games. If Rutgers can take care of business, then I don't think it's crazy to think that they could have a number next to their name, and they could be leading the Big Ten. I mean, to me, it's just not crazy. But like I said, it's just you got to go out there and take care of business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you look at who Rutgers, because obviously for the most part of Rutgers' tenure being in the Big Ten, they've kind of gotten shafted with the scheduling. But if you look at who they played twice this year, it's Iowa, who's currently 8-6 overall, 0-3 in conference. We play Minnesota twice, who's the worst team in the Big Ten. We play Northwestern twice, who's they're not a bad team, but they're not, Rutgers should be favored in both those games. They play Penn State twice, which Penn State has kind of been the breakout team at the Big Ten this year, so that kind of sucks. We play Ohio State twice. We already played them once, the remaining games at home. We play Indiana twice. We've already beaten them once. And that's who we played twice. So it's looking, the schedule looks pretty good for Rutgers moving forward. We probably don't play a very tough game in conference again until we're playing at Michigan State on the 19th of January. So obviously we play Ohio State, but we should be favored in that game, in my opinion. So yeah, a really clear runway ahead for Rutgers. Like we play Maryland on Thursday. Maryland just lost by 35 to Michigan. Michigan, who's struggling mightily. Michigan's a quad 3 team right now, believe it or not. They started the season ranked. So,
and Rutgers is going to want to be, Maryland's coached by Kevin Willard now, and former Seton Hall coach. So Rutgers is going to want to get that win there for sure.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, this has been it was a very stressful night last night, but a huge win for the program. A huge. I just want to throw in
before you end. I just want to throw in just prayers to DeMar Hamlin and everybody who knows him, family, friends, and him. Whatever your connection to DeMar Hamlin may be, just prayers for him. Hopefully, he gets through this. Last I saw, there's been no updates, but yeah, just prayers for him because scary situation last night with the football game.
It was like the same around like the same time too. It was like the end of the game and everything like that. So yeah, for sure, scary thing for sure.
Yeah, it was weird for Rutgers fans last night. It seems like the rest of the world, or the rest of the Twitter world, sports world, I should say, was very somber. Like it was one of the scarier moments I've ever kind of seen on TV, juxtaposed to Rutgers having this program defining win and just like jubilation on our end. So yeah. Terrible thing that happened. Sounds like he had cardiac arrest on the field. He got CPR for like 8 minutes. They got him. He wasn't breathing on his own, but he does have a pulse. It sounds like he was in stable condition, but he was still he was in stable but critical condition at the University of Cincinnati Hospital. He was at a level 1 trauma center, which is just means they have like every specialty on call, ready to go. So they took him to the perfect place. It's right near the stadium there. So. yeah, prayers for him because that was really a horrible scene in Monday Night Football last night.
Yeah.
But for everybody here, Rutgers fans, appreciate you tuning in. Another game on Thursday night to tune into. We'll have a recap of that after the game. But for me and everyone else, this has been another edition of the Night Report podcast. Signing off.